A few years ago, I bumped into a series of videos online where a guy was basically on a similar journey to me, but he was trying to improve his single leg squat, the pistol squat. And I found that really interesting. I was quite late to that party. I tracked back and I watched a whole bunch of videos, basically binged these videos. And then for the following month or two, I kind of kept an eye on where he was at. And he came to a conclusion that what he found was that the pistol squat wasn't translating over to his normal squat, his high bar or low bar squat, which I found very, very interesting. And, before then, I kind of always wondered, this unilateral, methodology, trying to, cheat the system in a way where you can kind of, do more work with less weight type of thing, where you can kind of bias all of your weight onto one limb, whether it's the arm or leg or whatever, and kind of train it that way, and then it transfers over to the two limb movement, like a bench press or a barbell squat or something like that. What he found was that there was no carryover, and he kind of got really, really good with the pistol squats. I remember he got up to, I think, 140 kilo, if I'm not mistaken, front rack barbell squat. That's very, very impressive. I think it was around 120, 140, something very, very impressive. Then he started testing his barbell squat, normal back squat, and he found that he's really not improving at all. And what his conclusion was is that when you're doing pistol squats, you're completely forgetting about the adductors. And there's been lots written about how the adductors are really the secret driver of barbell squats. Whether you're doing front rack, high bar, low bar, whatever you're doing, the adductors play a huge role. And when you go on one leg, you basically deactivate them completely. They work when you got 2 feet on the ground. So he kind of canned that whole experiment and he moved on, I think. I don't know what he was doing after that. But that was kind of the most interesting thing that I've ever seen in terms of unilateral exercising kind of method approach. This morning I thought about him and I thought about all of that, and I thought to myself, what are we actually gaining when we do unilateral exercises? Okay, there are some clear losses there. The adductors are not working as much as when you're doing bilateral exercises, but what are we gaining with unilateral? And to me it occurred, and I did some messing around before I went outside to train. I started doing single leg deadlifts or single leg Romanian deadlifts. And after a set of 20, just purely body weight, my glute medius, minimus, the whole kind of side glute area lit up to a point that I was like stumbling to walk after that. So it's clear that there's a transition of musculature being used between two legs and one leg. We can fairly say that when you are squatting on one leg, pistol squat or RDLing or doing anything like that, you are taxing the living hell out of the glute medius, glute minimus, TFL, that kind of region, the side glutes. But there's absolutely nothing going on in your adductors. I think that's the conclusion that we can kind of get out of that. When you are doing bilateral squats, I don't know how many times this has happened to me where I've gone away from squatting back in the day, where I've not squatted for a month, 2 months, 6 months or whatever, and I come back and I hit squats. Yes, my glutes, my quads, they hurt, everything, but nothing was coming close to the freaking DOMs I was getting in my adductors. Absolutely debilitating. And so, for years I used to think to myself, what am I doing wrong? I want my quads to work. Not knowing that really the pure drivers of the squat, especially if you're going ATG, are the adductors. The adductors are really making a lot happen. It's a very undervalued muscle. It's a huge muscle. When you look it up on the anatomy chart, you see that it's a freaking monster. But pistol squats deactivate them. So what do we take away from this? Well, most of our daily life we spend on one leg. Whether you're playing sports, whether you're running, whether you're walking, whatever you're doing, the majority of your time you're spending on one foot. So there should be great emphasis on unilateral leg exercises, especially if you're an athlete. If you're an athlete, I would argue that's more important than bilateral work. For a lot of us guys who are into Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, strongman, all of that kind of stuff, we are severely neglecting the athletic side of us, which is the side of our glute. This is something that took me a long while to understand, but the squat and the deadlift and all these fantastic exercises that we rank top 3 they are not perfect and they leave a lot off the table. And if you are never doing anything unilateral, you are completely not training your glute medius, glute minimus, TFL, all that stuff, you know, the QL muscle. There's all these sort of things that kind of, the obliques, all of these muscles start to kick in when you're on balancing on one leg, especially if you're balancing for a prolonged duration, like an RDL or a pistol squat or something like that, you know, just running and bouncing on one leg. Today I went out there and I did 5 sets of 20 each leg, Romanian deadlift, single legs. I'm not good at it. I was struggling to balance. I was struggling to, you know, to go through with it. The reason why I took the barbell was because I found it easier to balance, because it's kind of like, you know, when people are walking the tightrope kind of thing, you know, they're using the big stick to balance. That was kind of what my idea there was. I felt the side glute. I felt the side glute, and not that I have hip pain right now. I definitely don't have hip pain right now. But I spent a lot of time thinking about what have I done in recent times that has kind of addressed this area for me, because I've been feeling so well recently. I've changed a lot, and that's high repetitions. You know, wider stance, all that stuff. You know, making the adductors longer. And when you are in a wider stance, what happens is there's a torque present. You need to shift your knees out because of the wider stance. There's a pull, a gravitational pull, if you want, because you've got a wider base of support. There's a pull for your knees to valgus, to go in, and so there needs to be a more kind of greater requirement for you to activate the side of your glutes to push the knees out. But when you're going really narrow, the knees can't go in because there's just not enough room to go in, so they go out. And so when I usually squat, whether it's front squat or back squat, I don't really have a lot of demand for the side glutes. And so I'm wondering to myself whether the adductors keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger, because with a narrow stance, the adductors need to grow and grow because the knees want to fall out. You've got to draw them back in to kind of keep some sort of neutrality in lift. And so, you know, I was wondering whether that, just purely wide stance, high reps, addressed it. And then I thought to myself, okay, so how can I put this idea on steroids? How do I put this whole concept on steroids? Go on one leg. Because that is really then taxing the living hell out of the side glute. Because the adductors are completely off. They are off. Just like the guy that I mentioned, you know, with the pistol squat journey. They're off. You start doing single leg stuff, you feel the side glutes like nobody's business. The TFL, you know, there's so much going on. And so, I don't know what you do, how you do it, or whatever you're doing, but I think spending some time on the stance that you are not training majority of the time is very, very beneficial. And that's something that I've flirted with over the course of my journey. I've done reverse lunges, I've done walking lunges, I've done step-ups, I've done all sorts of things kind of thinking about this thing. And today was another step in that direction, thinking, okay, maybe I should do something. You know, maybe I should do something. And, you know, that something could have been the tire drag that I did, you know, last month. Now it's kind of raining every other day, so I haven't been going out there. But even just a sled drag, something that has you on one leg. I think a lot of us don't think about that enough, because I'll tell you another thing. When you're in that universal sticking point, what do you notice about what the body does? So you bounce out of the hole, right? Lots of strength there, and then you come to a screeching halt. The speed slows down in the sticking point. What happens? For the most part, the knees start to, even 1 or 2 millimeters or 1 centimeter or whatever, they start to creep in. And why is that important? The more the knees creep in, the less leverage you have overcoming that position. So if you can somehow get somebody to jump in while you're in that sticking point and shove your knees out, it's just better leverage for your glutes to fire to overcome that sticking point. So in a way, I'm thinking to myself, I could be completely wrong, that sticking point is essentially your side glutes failing, that they can't keep up with the demands, and the knee starts to travel in. And what happens? What is coupled with knee valgus? Good morning squat. Your knees go in at the same time your hips travel back. That's what happens. And then you're in this compromised position, and then you're fighting against a freaking mountain. You can't do it, and then you fail. That's why I fail every single squat. I feel like my knees start to travel in, and then my hips go back. I go into this weird look-alike deadlift position, but it's not really. And then I have to drop the bar because I can't get out of that position. And I always think to myself, not always, but now I'm kind of thinking to myself, what if I had this like incredibly steroided up, freaking massive side glutes. Like glute medius is just firing like a maniac. Wow! I just get them out, and all of a sudden my glute max can extend the hip, and voila. I could be wrong with my biomechanics, my thought process through that, but that's kind of how I see it. It's similar situation when people fail a bench press, right? They come off the chest, and what do you see? What do you see? What's the first thing you see? You see the elbows start to flare, and it becomes the bar starts to travel up towards their chin, and it's like this freaking ultra elbow flared position. That is not a strong position. And so what happens there? What do we need? So what reverses that position? Lats or serratus anterior, something like that, to leave the elbows tucked in. Because the moment we start flaring our elbows, man, you are asking for, number one, for injury, just like in the knee valgus, but also it's the sign that you're circling the drain. You know, you're about to die on that lift. It's like a terminal phase of the life of that lift. That's how I kind of think about it. I could be wrong, but that's kind of where my mind is when it comes to glute glute medius. That's kind of the importance of it. So maybe spend some time in one leg. That's kind of what I'm saying here. Appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.